Survivor, welcome to CHERNARUS, a land torn by desperation and fears, where stories are written in blood and tears, a land in chaos and conflict, where hope is fleeting and danger lurks around every corner. In this broken world, you must fight to survive. Remember, you're not alone, but others will either help or hinder your journey. Before you go, let us share the intel on some of the most dangerous places we have discovered in CHERNARUS and warn you about the CDF. The CHERNARUS Defense Force, CDF, was once the last line of defense against the growing chaos. Now, they are the architects of its ruin. Once hailed as protectors, they have become tyrants, their presence a blight upon the land. Their greed, their experiments, and their unrelenting hunger for control have poisoned CHERNARUS, both figuratively and literally. The CDF's influence extends beyond their ruined compounds. Scattered patrols, hidden outposts, and special operations teams still prowl the land. Reports suggest that they attempt to intercept supply drops, transport key personnel, and establish temporary bases deep within the country. Their motives remain unclear, but one thing is certain: they are responsible for this outbreak. They are responsible for the toxic bombardments. They are the greatest threat to CHERNARUS. Their failure to control their own creations, their blind pursuit of power, and their relentless grip on the land cannot be tolerated. If we are to survive, we must resist. We must fight. We must take back CHERNARUS. There is no government left, no saviors, only survivors. Tashina Chemical Factory, Lake Tashina. The Vatra strain was unlike anything seen before. It spread through bodily fluids and even as airborne particles. Victims experienced rapid internal necrosis and hemorrhagic fevers. Those who didn't succumb within 72 hours became something far worse. Violent husks of their former selves, driven by an insatiable urge to spread the disease. Dr. Tatiana Cerniakova and her medical team worked tirelessly in the abandoned chemical factory at Lake Tashina. Supplies dwindled. Communication with Central Command had gone silent. Yet they pressed on, refining an experimental vaccine derived from the blood of an immune survivor, one of the last civilians still held under quarantine in the outpost. Then the breach happened. Bodies twitching with fevered rage had overrun the perimeter. Cerniakova made her choice. She sealed the remaining survivors of the research team in the lab with strict orders to finish the vaccine. She alone would hold the line. As the quarantine alarms blared, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the halls. Cerniakova donned her NBC suit, strapped a CDF issue sidearm to her thigh, and activated the lab's self-destruct sequence. She would ensure Vatra died with her. Her last recorded words, transmitted over an emergency frequency, were simple.
If you find this, do not let them leave. Burn it all. Tell my family I did my duty.
Stary Luga Military Field Hospital.
What started as a routine containment effort had spiraled into an irreversible catastrophe. A mutated hemorrhagic fever, codenamed Vatra strain, had ravaged the lands. Cities once filled with life were now silent tombs, their streets littered with the remains of the infected. At the heart of the collapse stood Dr. Alexander Artemenko, lead virologist and chief medical officer of the 1st Brigade of the CDF Military Medical Unit. A veteran of past containment crises, Artemenko fled to the Sector 13 Field Hospital, now turned into a high-risk medical outpost near the Stary Luga. Patients were brought in from across all parts of CHERNARUS, but trying to treat them was a futile end of air. All died within 72 hours, and the hospital was turned into a morgue. Military convoys carrying the shipments of medical supplies failed to report in again and again. The smoke from burning flesh lay thick. The last of his nurses had succumbed just hours before, her fevered screams echoing through the sterilized tents before silence fell. Artemenko sat hunched over, trembling hands barely able to hold his recorder as he documented what might be his final words.
I don't know who's alive, don't know if anyone is coming. We were supposed to save them, When the medicine failed, we turned to prayers. When prayers failed, we turned to fire.
Stary Yar Weapon Factory. The factory at Stary Yar was the beating heart of CDF operations, a place where their scientists and technicians desperately sought to create the means to fight both the outbreak spreading through the land as well as fend off other military factions. As the infection spread within the compound ground, the CDF had no choice but to surrender the facility. The infection tore through their ranks, turning workers, soldiers, and scientists into ravenous husks, leaving only a handful of survivors. Before abandoning the factory, the last CDF soldiers detonated a series of explosive charges, causing all transportation tunnels to collapse. However, some parts of the underground factory can still be accessed. Parts of the factory even remain untouched, sealed behind keycard-locked doors, whispering of classified research material and high-value military-grade equipment that might still be retrieved. Severograd Quarry.
The mining company Severograd Kopalnya was once the largest employer of Severograd, running an efficient mining operation in the northeast quarry area. While rapidly expanding, digging deeper than any of its competitors, and the future looked nothing but bright for the always expanding business. After the outbreak and the decay that followed, the CHERNARUS Defense Force, CDF, that ran the weapon factory in Stary Yar, decided to move parts of their developed arsenal to the quarry for safekeeping. They began storing weapons deep within the quarry mining shafts. This included infamous weapons such as the state-of-the-art weaponry, the toxic gas missile, designed to disperse lethal chemicals across localized zones. Now, remnants of these weapons still detonate throughout CHERNARUS multiple times an hour, as a constant reminder of their reckless ambition. Multiple explosions have been recorded coming from the quarry, and a toxic gas seems to fume from the mines.
The CHERNARUS Defense Force Headquarters, TISI. Few who managed to flee Stary Yar regrouped at a makeshift camp in the northeast of TISI. They are wounded, bitter, and fiercely defensive of their new home. Unlike the disciplined army they once were, they have devolved into militarized scavengers, shooting anyone who dares approach. What they lack in numbers, they make up for in firepower. Approach them at your own risk. They do not negotiate. Survivor. With this knowledge, it is time for you to embark on your journey. This is where your struggle begins.